there. You can still find that on Twitter somewhere. I'm sure it's on YouTube. It's probably on TikTok. Yeah, that's what comes to mind. Thanks for that question. Yeah.
Okay, so as you, an actor, and Todoroki as a character, would you guys agree on your stances on pineapple on pizza?
Wait, I forget what his stance is on pineapple on pizza. Does he have one? I think.
Your choice.
Okay, so yes, I think we would agree. I think we would agree that pineapple shouldn't be on pizza. Sorry, yeah, I'm totally not a pineapple on pizza guy. Maybe it's my Sicilian heritage. So I just can't do it. Yeah. I can barely do chicken on pizza. I'm like, chicken, really? Although I've had some really great pizzas with chicken on it.
That's why your pizza is perfect.
Yeah.
What's up? What do you think your favorite Todoroki line out of all of them is?
Oh, God. I mean, there's like a different one every season. So I love all the funny lines. One of my favorites that has come up was, that's a pretty bad scar, in season 5. If you haven't seen it, you'll get there. But I remember watching the sub episode of that and seeing it and just being like, yes, I can't wait to say that line. That's when I know I'm excited to record, when I watch the sub and I'm like, I can't wait to do it. Yeah, I just thought that line was so like, it like walks the line of like being kind of flat, but also being like, it's a little bit of a dig, as much as Todoroki does. I love that line. There's one in season 6, and it's not the line as much as it is the line in the context of the scene, but he screams like, "You're insane." I love that line, it's just like, he just tells it like it is right there in that moment. Not a really nice thing to say, but like, that's what he was feeling, Yeah, do you have favorite lines? Cool, yeah. Those are the ones that come to mind. I mean, every time I'm asked that, I would probably have a different answer. It's like whatever comes to mind, because they're all so great. I love his poignant lines too. I love the line, if you're going to use words alone, then they better be incredibly powerful. He says that to Deku at one point. It's kind of this random scene where Deku's asking for advice. So yeah, what's great about putting quotes on prints or on pops or whatever is I get to relive those moments. So when someone comes up and I'm like, do you care what, and they get a quote, I'm like, do you care what quote, or can I pick one? My mind just goes through this Rolodex of awesome things that he said. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Hi.
Hello.
Could you briefly paint a picture of you going to work, it sounds like, and I might be wrong, that you do quite a few different projects at once, or characters, and
Sure.
You're keeping them straight, but what does it even look like when you go in the booth, or
Right.
a day at work, and how do you keep the characters sort of in your emotional body
Right.
aligned?
That's a great question. So all of my acting training, and every actor is going to have a different opinion on their process or what they believe acting is, or where the nucleus of it is, or where it comes from. But I really do feel like it's physically in the body. All of my training, from a BFA to an MFA to my time in New York, has always been the emotion, the story lives in the body. So when you're acting on stage, you tell the story with your physicality as well. And on camera, it's a very visual medium. So when you go into a booth and you're voice acting, I'm gonna see what time it is so I'm not too long-winded with this. I can talk about this for, no, it's great, I love it.
I'm trying to picture you at work.
Yeah, so when I go into a booth, I treat it that same way. The physicality, the character lives somewhere in there. But, part of your toolbox is kind of omitted. You don't have your physicality to tell the story to the audience. The audience is only gonna get the vocal stuff and the physicality of the animated character. So, but I still want that to be in there. So for me, much of 60% of my bookings are recorded at a studio, And then I have a professional home studio that I still do a lot of remote recording from. So, you know, just on a daily, if I'm working from home, I stand up from my desk, do a couple of warm-ups, walk into my booth, boot up everything, make sure Source Connect is working, you know, and then I will lock into it. I have pretty much the same setup as you would in a dubbing studio, which is a microphone, you've got 2 computer monitors, one has the animation, one has the script, then I will lock into a character that way. But when I'm going to the studio, I usually will typically warm up. I do different warm-ups that I've learned throughout my career, and that's mostly that sometimes I never know what I'm gonna be asked to do, so I wanna make sure I have access to my full range, my vocal range, whether that's a higher, lighter thing, or so I do that. It's not anything special, or you know, but that's kind of a ritual. And then what I love about your question, and the thing that impacted me about your question, is that, you know, how do you keep those voices in your body separate, and how do you bring them out when you need to, in a way? And it's
there's a lot of emotion connected to all of the different characters.
Yeah, 100%. You know, the emotion comes from what situation is my character in? What's the context? What are they doing? What do they want? What are they trying to get? What's their nightmare scenario in the situation? What do they don't want? You know, that at this point in my career, those are second nature for me. I'm always asking those questions, and I lock into whatever's going on. When it's a little challenging is when I'm working on characters. So I will record an episode, or say last week I recorded an episode of My Hero, an episode of Trigun, and then I'm doing a show called Buddy Daddies, a character of Ray. Yeah, I love Buddy Daddies. It's such a great show. Mm-hmm. It's these 2 like hitmen assassins, and they end up taking care of this little girl. It's really awesome. It's so much fun. Talk about comedy, like it's fun. But those characters, honestly, in my vocal range, just purely technically, they live in a similar vocal range. Like one isn't like crazy high and the other isn't crazy low, or one doesn't have a funny dialect, or they're very in a similar range. So it becomes really challenging. Like last week, I went from Trigun to I had an hour on that, and then my next hour was Buddy Daddies. And they're very similar, for a moment, I have to like shake one out, and then and I don't know how to describe how I do that. If there's an hour between or something, it kind of does it naturally. Like I would move on from Wolfwood and lock into Ray right away and Buddy Daddies. But so it's really just, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of an intangible thing. You watch the character, you hear the music of the anime, or the ambient noise, and you lock into it. Many times too, if you need, you can ask the director or the audio engineer, can I get a reference? Will you play me like what we last recorded? So if we recorded at 5, say, can we go to the end of episode 4 and can I just hear a scene that I did? And that, if I'm really feeling like discombobulated or I'm not feeling it, I'll ask for that, and that can help lock you in.
Pardon me, David, I'd just like to give you a 5-minute warning.
Yeah, great. So I love that question. Go ahead.
What's it like playing the character of Todoroki?
It's amazing, and one of the reasons it's amazing is because of you guys, honestly. To be able to sit at a table and talk to people about what Todoroki does for them, or what another character, who's sweet, or whatever it is like, you know, when I first started doing anime, I was so busy doing other types of stuff too that I didn't go to conventions very often. And I remember the first time I went to a convention was maybe like 8 years or so after I had been voice acting. And I had no idea that certain shows would impact people, and it was such an amazing gift to experience that. So the best thing about Todoroki specifically is what he brings up for people and the impact that show has on people. It's awesome. It's like a gift to be a part of. Go ahead, sir.
I just have one more final question. So, it's not My Hero Academia related, but what's it like being in Portland for the first time?
In what?
What's it like
Portland?
being in Portland for the first time?
This is the second time I've been here.
Okay.
I was here like in high school or something, so I don't really remember it.
Okay.
I remember it being cool. It's got a chill vibe. I haven't had a lot of time to do anything much. I did hang out with a friend last night who lives in Spokane, Washington. Just happened to be in town, so that was awesome. Yeah, like best friend from high school. Speaking of high school, But I love the Pacific Northwest, the vibe just in general. There's something that I feel connected to about it. So it's been awesome to be here. I would love to be back.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think we have one
Thank
last
you.
question.
Yeah, sure. One more.
So I just quickly want to touch on the hero names. I think you should just lean into Icy Hot. And if you have want something better, maybe ask the voice actor for present mic. But
Okay.
my question is, if you for one episode could voice any of the other characters in My Hero, what would it be and why? Or who would it be and why?
Minetta. No, I'm just kidding. No, I kind of would want to. I would kind of like want to take it as a challenge. Like, how do I make this guy like kind of likable? How would I do that? Like, how do we take these lines, take the way he is, and figure out a way to, I don't know, make him endearing. Probably not something that can happen. I don't know. But that was the first thing that came to mind. I think it would be fun, and Cliff and I talk about this all the time, like to take on each other's characters because they're so very different. I would never, obviously, and you didn't ask it this way, but I would never want to replace anybody because they're so perfect for their roles. Like, I remember geeking out. I walked into a studio early, and Josh Greeley was in there doing Tokiyami. And, I was like, all of a sudden I became I fanned out. I was like, oh my God, he's doing it live. I'm hearing it live. It's live. It's not on a show. He's right there doing it. So yeah, I have a crazy respect for what everybody does in the show, but I think it would be fun to take on Bakugo just because I don't get to play characters like that. Although I did a show called Yakuza's Guide to Babysitting, I think. Is that the name of it? Wait. There was like 2 shows with babysitting and Yakuza at the same time. And I got to scream the whole time as this character. And I was like, oh, so this is what it's like to play Bakugo. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like Fat Gum. There's so many, the characters are so great. It would just be fun to do anything, but I would never want to be them because the people rock. So that's a great question.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
David, thank you so much
Yeah.
for answering all of our questions.
Thank you guys so much. Those were awesome questions. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
You
Thank
too.
you,
Everybody,
Sam.
you can find David at his booth in the exhibitor hall.
And man, it went viral on Twitter. He got permission to post it, but it was something about, he rewrote the lines and he had Todoroki saying Bakugo's great, he's better than I am or something. Yeah. And we were just playing around and all of a sudden, how are you guys?
Good.
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 What's going on?
We're just chit-chatting while we're waiting for you to come
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt your
in.
conversation.
Oh, no, it's okay.
That's fine.
We had a first timer actually, this Todoroki right here, first time, so.
Oh, no way. The first time at a convention?
Yeah, it was my birthday present.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm Cayman, I'm your moderator for today.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Would you like to introduce yourself and give a little bit of background?
Sure. Some of you guys have probably already heard this, but yeah, my name is David Matranga. I always, when they first started calling me a voice actor, I was like, because I really just trained as an actor. I didn't really know that was a term early on, and now I've fully embraced it. But yeah, I started, acting when I was in middle school and high school, and really fell in love with it. Fell in love with storytelling and portraying a character, and went went on to study acting in college, and then I kicked around the country. I was in New York and did a lot of professional stage work as well, and then always wanted to do some voiceover and voice acting, and so I had an agent at the time, and I had done some commercial voiceover, but not really any anime yet, and I got an audition for an anime, and kind of lucked into a lead role, my first audition out. And I always tell people, you know, I didn't train as a voice actor. I really had a good foundation as an actor in general. Because, you know, voice acting is acting in front of a mic. There's some technique stuff to it, obviously, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. And so I was able to kind of adjust pretty quickly on my feet, and that was my intro to anime, and I've been doing it ever since. And now I'm here talking to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Are you ready to take some questions?
Sure, let's get right to
Who
it.
would like to be our first question asker? Don't be shy.
I can always just keep talking about random stuff here.
Hi.
No pressure. Hi, how are you?
I actually really like Usui from Maid-sama, so I was
Yes.
wondering if maybe you could share like a favorite moment of him or a line you really
I
like.
mean, you know, it's hard to pick one moment, but that show was so much fun to do. You know, we really, that's just one of those shows, and I think you can kind of hear it in the performances. It was just one of those shows where we just had fun the whole time, you know? The content is crazy, it's quirky, it's off the beaten path, kind of, you know. And Monica and I, you know, Monica plays Misa, we've been in, you know, we've sort of started voice acting around the same time, so we've been in a bunch of different stuff, and we were just playing off of each other. Some of the improv, I mean, I need to go back and watch so I can remember, was that an improv or was that in the script? Because we just made up stuff, you know, and you know, I love the stare moment. I love that. So yeah, you know, the most shocking thing about that show is we had fun doing it, and sometimes you just enjoy the moment of what a show is, and then you never really know whether it's going to be anything or not. And Monica and I really didn't know, and then I think all of a sudden they put it on Hulu, and I know there were people that found it before that, but yeah, it had such an impact on people, so it's always special when a show becomes that, you know? Yes. No worries. So yeah, I mean, we you know, we had a special print made by an artist that Monica knows, just because people were asking us for it. And there's not as much merch out there for it. Although we're starting to find more. There's a couple of artists and different websites that are like dedicated to, there's like an Usui rug you can get now. So anyway, thanks for asking that question. I love that show. It's so much fun.
Thank you. Next.
Hello.
Hi. Has there ever been any roles that were challenging for you to do, and if so, which was the hardest one for voice acting?
Yeah, there's roles that are challenging for different reasons, you know. Some roles can be challenging just from a technique perspective, like vocally. Either you're screaming a lot, or you're having to create a voice that isn't completely natural, so you're doing something different with your vocal cords that they might not like after a prolonged amount of time. And then there's shows that are emotionally, you know, taxing and can be difficult that way. So it's hard to choose one that was the most difficult. I mean, I think from a technical perspective, you know, early on in my career, I played the, you know, younger sorcerer or, you know, kind of 18 to 20-year-old guy. And then at one point I did a show called Appleseed. It was 3 movies. And it was this big cyborg character. And I had to really get gravelly and lay down on my chords a little bit. And that was taxing. Interestingly enough, the character in the second film, that's the one I did first, and we went back and dubbed the first and the third film. The character's kind of, his computer system is being hacked, and so he's kind of losing his mind, so to speak, as the show goes on. And if you watch the movie, you can hear me kind of losing my voice as we record it. And it totally worked for the character. But after that, I was like, man, I gotta talk. I can't talk for like 2 days. So there's roles like that. Interestingly enough, Todoroki is, at the beginning, was a challenging voice to find. It's not a ton different than my normal voice, but it is a little bit, lives in a lower, kind of breathier, whispery type space. But the challenging thing was the fact that he's so, internal. He keeps things really close to the vest. He doesn't have a lot of vocal variety in his speech. And so you have to have that has to be there. Some people call it flat or monotone. I prefer not to call it that, but because all of the backstory, all of his nuance, all of the history has to be there, even though he's not very expressive with it. So that was challenging to find. Every time that for the first season or so, when we would get in there to record, Colleen would say, all right, here's the first scene, let's take a crack at it. And I would do something, and she would be like, okay, yeah, that's in the ballpark. It's a little bit, there's too much vocal kind of up and down. Let's flatten it out a bit. And I would do a take like that, and she would be like, okay, that sounds like he has no heartbeat. Let's split the difference. And then I would find like the sweet spot, and I would lock in. So that was challenging for that reason. And then there's other roles that were just emotionally, like Clanad or Clanad, people say it different ways. Just a taxing emotional journey, to say the least, and that's one of the ones where you kind of have to shake it off when you get out of the booth. But yeah, I think those are the three kind of categories of challenging that I would say. There's different challenges about everything, but yeah, great question. Hello, sir.
Hey there. So, what is the most challenging things that you had to do when voicing Todoroki?
Well, like I said, the sort of finding his cadence and his the way how dry he is when he speaks. The most fun, I don't know if it would necessarily be challenging, but when he's so when he says things like, if I smile, they'll die, things like that, or my name is not Five Weenies. Like, he's so real about that, it's not funny to him. He's really being authentic, which makes it, and we talked about this already, but makes it funny to us as the viewer. I love those moments. But yeah, challenging, I would say the most challenging thing is to just make sure that all that Todoroki is in the voice, even when he just has 2 words to say. It's challenging when you don't have as many words to express what's going on. And that always, I feel a lot of responsibility for that. But it's been great. Lately, he's coming out of his shell a bit more, some of these big fight scenes, he's really there, and it's awesome. After, maybe 3 seasons of it really just being kind of right here, to get to do that is awesome. Yeah. Thank you, that's a great question, yeah. Thank you. All right.
Have you
Ever
had any Todoroki lines that were just like, what is this?
Yeah. The first one is, hey Midoriya, what are you, All Might's secret love child? When I saw that on paper, I was like, someone's joking, right? Like, someone just wrote this as a joke. Where's the real line? And they were like, no, that's what you say. And then we made it work, and now it's one of my favorite lines. That one, the romantic Todoroki, you have a beautiful face, my dear. That was a funny thing to see on the page, just because Colleen, who's the dub director, said, yeah, just give us your best romantic Todoroki. And I was like, that doesn't really equate, right? And it was really challenging because that line doesn't exist in the real world. It's like a fantasy line, right? So to try and figure out how to say that as fantasy romantic Todoroki was challenging. I think it took us like 5 or 6 times to get it. I did it, and she was like, there was a long pause, and then I just heard, that was your best romantic Todoroki? So yeah, that was challenging. I don't know if anyone's seen the recent OVAs, the Mr. Smiley one, but yeah, there's a character that when you are around this character, you can't help but laugh or whatever. And so when I knew that Todoroki was going to be in this, I was like, oh my god. I think Cliff, who plays Bakugo, called me and was like, dude, we have to laugh in this. How do we laugh? I mean, Bakugo laughs sort of, but it's always a little sarcastic, like a genuine laugh. And I was like, dude, I don't know how to laugh as Todoroki. He doesn't laugh. So we got it, we did it. I think it's good, but it was challenging. And I was nervous. I was like, oh my god, I gotta figure out how to laugh. With a character like him, it's like, how does that? I mean, it'll be really interesting if he ever genuinely laughs in the anime. But yeah, those are the things that come to mind. Next.
Hi, I'm Jake. So I first heard you in Clan Ad, and just from there, just been a huge fan. So it's really awesome to get to see you.
Thank you.
This weekend. Todoroki is one of my favorite characters. I really identify with him a lot.
Right.
With the father issues, everything.
Sure.
But on a better note,
Yeah.
so I know Shoto doesn't have a hero name. He just wants to be Shoto. But if you could give him a hero name, what would it be?
Oh man, I don't know. You know, it's so hard because I don't really. I know. That's one.
Bastard.
I mean, I think he would probably be like, yeah, just call me Icy Hot. You know, it's fine, whatever.
Based off of.
Because you know, it's really telling that he wants to be called Shoto because, you know, he was trained to do one thing his whole life, very sheltered, which is why I think he doesn't always understand certain social situations and that nuance, you know. So yeah, I don't really come away with like, with my own opinion about things because I try to stay open to what his journey is. But yeah, I have answered this question before with Icy Hot, so it's funny that you say that. I think he would probably, I think he would do that. I think Icy Hot would be the most appropriate. It's already out there, people already call him that. But there's gotta be a better one out there. So, I don't know, sometimes I think some of the moves, like Jet Kindling or something would be a cool name. Flash Fire Fist, like stuff like that, Flash Freeze Heat Wave. So I don't know, maybe some take on one of those moves, because those are cool names. Yeah, I'm gonna think about it and I'll get back to you. Yeah, great question, yeah.
Hi, I was curious because I saw your role as Kandaichi and I really liked that. I was also curious because you've done it in a couple other sports animes, if you learned anything about the sport from those animes.
So I've done, I think the ones that are the most prominent are Haikyuu, volleyball. I did the movie of Kuriko's basketball, like Last Game, I think it was called, which was so fun. I play such a kind of a-hole character. He's so cocky and kind of just not cool. And I love him for that. Nash Gold Jr., I think, is his name. And then I'm currently in and out of Prince of Tennis as well. It's funny, you know, I played sports growing up, so I was a big basketball fan. So basketball, I sort of know the drill there. I think I learned a little bit more about volleyball, but like I've always been interested in sports. I think I like the drama of sports, the story of sports. I'm not like a big analytical guy, like, oh my god, this guy's got these kind of stats, you know, like one of the things I like about sports is what is the story behind this game, you know, and it's telling since that's what I love to do. But I'm trying to think if there's anything I learned that like I didn't know before. It's funny too because sports anime usually takes the sport and like makes it even cooler, or like Prince of Tennis, like they're doing moves like this is like a shonen print, like, you know, like anime moves. It's crazy. Trying to think if there's anything else I did sports-wise. So yeah, the short answer is I don't feel like I knew enough about those sports already growing up to not be surprised by it. I'm a huge tennis fan. I love tennis. I'm not good at it, but I like it. It's a good workout. Yeah, I don't think there's anything specific that I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. There's gotta be. It's not like I'm a sports expert or anything. So. That's a great question though. Yeah.
I was wondering, like, what's kind of the experience dubbing? Just because, like, you have to sort of kind of work with the original, like, audio. I was just wondering, like, what kind of your process for approaching that was.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we always take inspiration from the original creators, the Japanese voice actors. Whenever we're doing you know, you go into the booth. Typically, I will watch the subbed episode if I have access to it beforehand, just to get an idea of what I'm going to need to do and what is going to be expected of me. And you don't always have that luxury, so sometimes you're just going in cold, and that's why you have to be a good cold reader, someone who is willing to just go there on the spot, you know? And that's what actors do, and that's what you're trained to do. But, so I take inspiration from that. And then, you know, it's a really interesting form of acting. Because like I said, for me, I want my performances to be as authentic as they possibly can be. I think every actor wants that in some way. That's kind of what our job is, to live truthfully under this imaginary circumstance, whatever it is. So, you know, I don't like really separate my voice from my body. I think that our physicality informs our body. So I will take on different physical attitudes or body language when I'm doing a character. Like I just did the dub of the new Trigun Stampede, and I'm doing Nicholas D. Wolfwood in that. And he's just, you know, this kind of languid, cool, you know, guy in this version, you know? And so my physicality changes when I'm doing that. Even though I keep my face in front of the mic, it's gonna be a different physicality than if I'm in there doing Shota Todoroki or whatever, any other character. So I start with that, but what's challenging, and then I think the voice comes out of that, and then you make tweaks or whatever. What's really challenging about it is, like you said, you know, it's already been created. Right? So there are lip flaps, there are timing issues. And you get a little help from the audio engineer, the audio engineers are like amazing. I mean, we can't do any of it without them. They can help you a little bit if something's a little bit short, meaning it doesn't fill the flaps exactly, or it's a little bit long. They can do some squeezes and stuff, but only to a point, because after that you can hear that in the file. So one of the challenging things is when you nail a read, right? Like, it was awesome. You did the read, you did the line, it was perfect, it was embodying everything it was supposed to be, and they try to make it work, and it doesn't work, and you get the direction from the director. Okay, that was amazing, that was perfect, that was great, that's exactly what we want. Can you just do that a little bit slower? So then as an actor, you're going, okay, let me first off remember what I did that was so great, because, you know, I just did that, I'm glad it was awesome, but how do I recreate it? And then how do I figure out a way to authentically make it a little slower? Because you don't want to do it technically, because then you'll hear that this is, oh, here's voice actor doing something slower. So I love to, it's like a puzzle that way. So that's, and I don't even know if I'm answering your original question, but that's part of the technique of it that I think isn't always realized when people set out to do it. You know, that you've got to remember the performance of that read, and then you have to authentically figure out how do I deliver this a little bit slower? And the way I do that is I think, okay, what is this guy trying to say here? So what word can I emphasize a bit more? Because if I just need like less than a second, if I just lift that word a little more, it's gonna slow down the whole line. So, and it's really just like you develop an ear for that. So I remember, and then I just try something, you know, and typically, you know, I can do that in one take, and great, that was great, and it's slower. So the cool thing is it's a very creative, art form. You're acting, but then there's technical stuff that is always going on in your brain too. And it's that way for a film actor, a stage actor. When you walk out on stage, you gotta hit your light. But you can't walk out on stage and look at your light and then then deliver your line, because that would be like, what is that guy looking at that light for? Unless your character just likes to look at lights, then that would make sense. But so, and on camera, you gotta know where the camera is, you gotta know where your eye line is. There's all kinds of always technical stuff going on in acting, but the fun challenge is to be authentic, be real. It's almost like you have two minds. You're doing the thing that's over here, Todoroki, whatever he's doing, and then I've got my actor brain that is tracking technique stuff. Yeah, I could talk about that forever, but that's one little part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hello.
What were the easiest and hardest lines for you to do as Todoroki?
The easiest and hardest lines to do is Todoroki. One of the recently challenging lines, again, I don't want to give any spoilers if people haven't seen season 6, but there's an episode with dance in the title, and Todoroki's really raw. He's just learned some new information. He's in sort of a trauma response, but also in a situation where he has to act quickly. He's not getting help from certain people who are just frozen standing there. And so the challenging thing of that was all that emotion and screaming at the time, like begging almost. It was really challenging to not blow out my voice, but also to make it not authentic, but to make sure you could hear it, that it was understandable, but with all of that emotion there. So that was challenging, but I was so ready for that. I couldn't wait for that moment. And then some of the, I wouldn't say it's easy, but the stuff that's become like second nature now is just his normal way of being, his flatter, kind of dry delivery. I love it. It's kind of part of me now. So I walk into the booth, I see his face up on the screen, and I kind of just lock into that moment. So yeah, I would say that's the easier thing for now, and then that one episode was challenging to have all of that going on while screaming at the top of your lungs. Yeah, great question. Hello.
In your career, has there ever been a moment where you felt like giving up and there's a lot of reasons to, and if so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think any person that's in a creative career of any kind, whether that's a visual artist, a writer, an actor, a director, any creative career, and in my mind, all careers are creative. Like even if you're in finance, you're being creative with numbers. You know what I mean? So entrepreneurs are some of the most creative people too. But I think that our world and our society isn't really set up to kind of support artists that well on your journey. And so I always knew that. When I was going into college, I was practical. I was passionate about what I wanted to do, but I'd always ask myself practical questions like, how do I do this? How do I make a living doing this? And what can I do to help myself? So the short answer is, yeah, I think it's actually healthy of a creative individual to go, why am I still doing this? Like, things aren't working out. I don't feel like I'm getting good opportunities. I don't feel like this is what I thought it would be. There's all kinds of things at different stages in your career, at the beginning, in the middle, toward the end, whatever. And I once asked a friend, I was like, we had done something like 10 years ago together in theater, and I was like, man, and he had moved on and was doing different things now, and we were having lunch, and I was like, man, isn't it crazy? Like, can you believe I'm still doing this? Like, why am I still doing this? And he was like, you're still doing it because you're still doing it. Like, so my short answer is, whatever your engine is, I like to call it my engine. Like, what is it that keeps driving me? what keeps propelling me to do this. And if you don't have a very strong engine, if you don't have a strong why, then it's too hard of a career to keep doing. Like, and that's fine too. Like, if you realize, hey, I'm not into this anymore. Rock on, you know? But for me, it's always been, that engine has always been there. So even when I feel down, or I haven't gotten the roles that I've wanted, or it just doesn't feel like it's going well, and I can't see my way to the next thing, my engine is still there, and it's still operative. And that's like to be a part of a story that has an impact, to take on characters that I can learn from and the audience can learn from, to illuminate the human experience in some way. Like and I've had to try and articulate that for myself in my career. You know, when I was in college and I was ready to do this, I knew it was something deep in me, but I didn't know how to say what it was. Now I can articulate it a little better. But yeah, the things that keep me going are that, like, hey, you know, I still want to be in the game. I still want to be able to compete for that next chance to be a part of that story, or to take on that cool character, or, you know, so even when it's dark or I'm down, I'm still like, the scariest thing about acting, and also the most exciting thing, is you never know what's around the corner. And you never know what's around the corner, and that can be terrifying. It doesn't feel very secure. But it's also exciting because you never know. So that's just kind of kept me going, you know, and I also believe in myself. You know, I didn't always, and sometimes I struggle with that still, but I believe in my talent. I believe in what I bring to the table. I think I'm a pretty authentic guy who really wants to just do good work and work with good people, and that keeps me going too. So yeah, again, these questions are amazing. I can talk about that forever too.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned Monica and Clean earlier. Do you have a voice director you prefer working with, or a favorite?
Man, you know, there's not favorites or anything. I mean, the greatest thing about collaborating, you know, I think sometimes the directors of anime don't get a lot of the credit that they deserve, but they're a huge part of the process, like invaluable. And the reason why is, you know, I show up, and it's Colleen or Mike McFarland or Cliff Chapin or Jeremy Inman or Jerry Jewell or whatever. And especially when you're creating a new character with a director, you really are creating that together. Like, I just recently went in and did Wolfwood for Trigun Stampede, right? And you know, that's a very popular older anime that they're rebooting. That brings with it its own challenges. And so I wasn't sure. I'd watched the episode, so I got an idea of what the guy, who he is in this version. But I wasn't sure what Jeremy, who's the director, was gonna want from me. You know, we've worked together before, but so, you know, I lay something down and he's like, yeah, okay, so remember this voice that we did? I want you to take that voice and keep a little bit of the texture and the grit, but make him a little younger. So we collaborate on that voice. Then I bring something to it, he's like, yeah, I like that, awesome. And then in about 10, 15 minutes, we create that. And then we lock in, and that's what we do. So, you know, it's not favorites, but the ones that I have an intimate relationship with, that I've worked with before, where we have a great give and take. Definitely Colleen is that way, Cliff is that way. What's that?
She's probably my favorite.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. I mean, when you look at how she's cast, just casting My Hero Academia, not to say nothing of the fact that, you know, she's directing everybody's performances in there, but she continues to nail it. Like, I think she's cast the show perfectly. It's one of the reasons that the dub really gels and it hits in a way. So yeah, and I love working with a director that I have a good relationship with, so I can say even, and this comes with working with people multiple times, but I'll do a take and Colleen might be fine with that take. And she'll be like, okay, great. And I'll be like, you know what, can I just get one more? I don't like the way I said this, or I don't know, it just didn't feel right. Can I get one more? That happened in the third movie, World Heroes Mission, toward the end. Todoroki's in this big battle. And we only had like an hour, maybe 90-minute session to do that whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it was 2 hours. And we were towards the very end, and we got to that scream, and I was like, I wanna get that back. Can I do that again? And we had like 5 minutes left. And she was like, I thought it was great. It was amazing. Like, how are you gonna beat that? It was amazing. And I was like, I just want it back. And she's like, all right, we only have 5 minutes. If we have enough time at the end, we can circle back and you can get another shot at it. So we ended up having enough time. I circled back. I brought everything that I wanted to bring, and she was like, okay, you're right. That was actually better. And that's the one that's in the film. But so I love that, you know, I love being able to have that give and take. Because collaboration, you know, to speak about the engine in the last question, that's part of the fun of getting to create work, whether it's anime or a play on stage or film or whatever, television show, you're collaborating with other creatives and it's awesome. So, yeah, great question, thanks man, yeah.